In in this time of unprecedented opportunity and plentiful resources, the church is actually losing influence. Who's heard of George Barna, the Barna Group? I know Michael Jackson has. We talked about it the other day. I'd always heard of the Barna Group. I didn't know what they do. But George Barna is a church historian and statistician. The Barna Group was a market and research group that focuses on the intersection of faith and culture. So sometime in the 80s and 90s, they did a 15-year study, and the conclusion of the 15-year study was the Christian church in America is dying due to lack of leadership. Jeremy asked me a couple of months ago to do leadership, and there again I say, why? I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to be one. I don't claim to be one. And I'll tell you my reason a little bit later. So where do you start? He gave me the task of learning to lead. So where do you start? I thought of Ed. He's always got a book in his hand. He's always reading. So I'm going to buy the book, Learning to Read, Learning to Lead. And then maybe I'll learn to read if I read it. So learning to lead. I'm thinking, I'll give y'all a book report. That'd be fantastic. So let me share a few things out of the book. You cannot make a leader out of someone without the innate gift of leadership. Leadership can be coached, but never implanted. Now, I'll add a little bit there. That almost makes a little sense. You know, Coach Saban may be an example of this because he gets all these assistants in. They spend years with him. Why don't they take exactly how he does things to their new school, to Georgia or wherever they go, Florida, and why don't they recreate exactly what Nick Saban has at Alabama? So, you know, maybe a little bit something to that one. Here's some more things. At age 3 or 4 years old, you can see a pattern of leadering or following. Here's my favorite. Ask yourself, am I occupying a place of leadership without talent? Then, if financially possible, which was a little amazing thing, change positions. More stuff in here like if you're not a good leader, you better build a good team. Well, that's actually really good advice. You need a good team around you. And if you're wondering, this book is a church leadership book. So can you learn to lead? Can you teach anybody to lead? You know, Scripture says a little about leadership as being a gift. Romans 12, 6 through 8, we have different gifts according to the grace given us. If a man's gift is prophesying, let him use it in proportion to his faith. If it is serving, let him serve. If it's teaching, let him teach. If it is encouraging, let him encourage. If it is contributing to the needs of others, let him give generously. If it is leadership, let him govern diligently. If it is showing mercy, let him do it cheerfully. Then you got 1 Corinthians 12:28. Is a gift of administration. Where administration, seems to mean steer, pilot, lead others. So if you didn't get the gift and you weren't number one in your preschool class, can you learn to lead? Just a little contrast to my Learning to Lead book. I shared this one last time. Michael has got us to read in this Lessons in Leadership by Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. And Jonathan would say, that all Jews are called to lead. Everybody is called to lead. He used Exodus 19:4-6, which says of the Jewish people, "You'll be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." Genesis 1:26-28 does declare that God designed people to lead and have dominion over the earth. So I got in the middle of this and realized I started off wrong, because I didn't even define what a leader was. When we think of, I think the world has it messed up now. When we think of leader, we immediately think of a boss. And in leadership, what have I got to do from a boss? What's he going to require of me? And that's what I said. I've said it 1,000 times. I don't want to be a leader. I want to cut the grass. I want to dig a ditch and have somebody tell me how deep and how long to dig it. And then I realized reading the last couple of days that that's because I'm selfish. I don't want the responsibility of you. You think of Moses out there minding his own business one day, and the next day he's leading the people out of Egypt. Do you think it was about Moses or about the people? It was all about the people. It wasn't about Moses. I was talking with Michael this morning. I wish I drew me the chart a little bit about his conversation with a board member a couple of years ago, talking about leadership. And you have the triangle where the leader's at the top. All these people supporting the leader. Well, that board member was telling Mike, was sharing Mike. I don't think he's telling Mike anything he didn't know, but that's turned over. The leader is down here at the point of that triangle, supporting and supporting all the people. So we've really got leadership messed up in the world today. Jesus tells us how to be great in Matthew 20:26-28. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. Monday morning, I get to work and I'm walking around campus. Bill and Jamie's backed up to the back door. A couple of white tables in the back of the truck. So, I'm thinking, oh man, I gotta get a table now. So I get a table. And when I come out, here's Matthew Post. Got his book. He got his backpack on one arm, a table on the other. He's coming in there with a table. And he goes back and gets another table. And then he says, is there any, I think I heard him ask Jamie and Bill, is there any more tables? Matthew Post is a leader.
What?
The leader is just simply a servant. I've heard a lot about servant leadership, over the years. And I don't know that I ever took the time to think about it and understand what it means. Here again, this rabbi gets it. He uses that same Exodus 19, and there's a word in there that could either be priest, princes, leaders. It can also be translated servants. So what he does with that is to say Israelites were called to be a nation of servant leaders. It's interesting. Going back to my book that I was going to give you a book report on. He mentions servant leaders. He says, servant leadership is a helpful concept, but is terribly abused. So if Matthew Post is a leader, what's leadership? John Maxwell. I just need to read another book by John Maxwell. He He says every person who accepts Christ is called to influence others. With Matthew 28, go and make disciples of all the world, God's chosen us to lead others to follow him. Leadership is just influence. You know, it's the salt and the light of Matthew 5. So you want to learn to lead or be a leader? I started out thinking that this talk would be about, well, you got to find you a good mentor. You got to find you a good group. You need that leadership team. You need to listen to your elders, and I'm not talking about your church. You need to listen to old men like me. You know, we're wise. We've done it. We've messed up. But I just couldn't connect all the dots. You know, what's really important is that you take responsibility for someone and do something for them. Be a servant. I hear a lot, well, can I get legacy hours for that? I hate that question.
We can.
You know, and I work the same way. You know, it pays pretty well to be a leader, but it ought not be about what you pay, what you're going to get out of it. You know, and the older I get, I realize that Christianity is certainly not a personal thing. You hear a lot of people say, yeah, it's personal. But it's all about others.